Stand for the pledge. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the October meeting of the Philipstown Planning Board. I'll be sitting in for Chairman Zuckerman this evening. Can we get a roll call? Roll call, please.
Joe Burden.
Here.
Dennis Gagnon.
Here.
Peter Lewis.
Here.
Laura O'Connell. Here. Neil Toman.
Here.
Heidi Wendell. Here. Neil Zuckerman.
Can I get a approval for the September minutes? Can I get a motion to approve the September minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, I vote aye. And we have a little housekeeping to do, some correspondence. Cheryl, you want to go through the...
First one is 6-month extension request for Golinczak, Crest Road, Cold Spring, New York. Dear Chairman Zuckerman and members of the Planning Board, as you may recall, this project received site plan approval at a meeting of the Planning Board on March 17th, 2022, and the site plans were signed by the Planning Board on April 21st, 2022. A building permit has not yet been obtained. On behalf of the applicant, we hereby request an additional 6-month extension of the site plan approval in accordance with 17568E1 of the code, while the applicant continues to develop the construction documents and secures the necessary financing for the project.
This is the first extension request, correct?
Neil, there's a problem with this project
Okay.
as far as I can
Steve?
tell. 17568E1 says that site plan approval shall expire if the applicant fails to obtain any necessary building permits or fails to comply with conditions of site plan approval within 24 months of its issuance. So, if the special permit with it expires, that's not the case here, but the point is that they didn't get a building permit within 2 years. April is when the site plan was issued, April 2022. So April of 2024, the site plan would have expired. The planning board's policy in the past has been if at least an application or a letter asking for an extension is received prior to expiration of the permit, the board will grant it nunc pro tunc. But here, where the site plan's already expired, I just don't see a way around it. I don't see how you can grant an extension. I think they have to apply for renewal of the site plan.
Okay. So do we need to, do we need to vote on this, or we just deny the request, or who do we
Well,
send
I
it back
think
to
the thing
Greg?
to do is to have me send them a letter saying they don't qualify for it. I don't think you need a formal vote on it as far as
Okay.
that goes. If they disagree, or if there's something I've overlooked, they can come back and then you can vote to grant it. But
Who is this? Who's I'm drawing a blank on this. Who's?
It's up off of East
Anybody-
Mountain Road, East Mountain Road North.
Very modern looking building.
Okay.
East, it's off the-
Oh, okay, all right, okay, thank you. All right, so we'll just note that, Cheryl, you'll send him a letter to that effect? Thanks.
Second one is a return of escrow request for Stepping Stones Childcare and Development. It's just come to my attention that this one is a little bit premature. There's still
All
something
right,
to be
Rhonda,
done.
do you want to comment on this? Sounds like they're a little ahead of themselves.
Yeah, well, typically when,
Have they been issued a CFO?
an applicant advises that the project construction has been completed and seeks to have the remaining escrows returned, you normally direct my office to just inspect the project, make sure that all required improvements have been completed, and once that's understood, you normally allow the escrow to be returned. So I have not yet been to that project in a while.
Okay.
So I can't tell you if they're complete or not.
I was just by there not too long ago, yeah, it didn't look like they were done yet. I went to Girelli's and I noticed they were not done, so this isn't ripe either. Okay, so we'll send them a letter to that effect. And then letter from Krasniqi, this is Krasniqi.
Dear Chairman Zuckerman and members of the Planning Board, the applicant would like the board to be aware that we are in receipt of the traffic assessment peer review letter from SLR Engineering dated September 25th, 2024. Given the short time frame between receipt of the letter and the submission deadline of the October meeting, and the scope of work required to respond to the letter, the applicant intends to resubmit for the November meeting, with the opportunity to formally respond to the comments in the SLR letter, as well as to the remaining comments from the town engineer. We anticipate a productive discussion at that meeting. Yours truly, Insight Engineering, Richard Williams.
All right, so what are they looking for from us?
They're just letting you know why they're not here tonight.
Okay, all right, well, thanks for the heads up. Very good. Got a little bit of everything tonight, some old news, or some old business, some new business. And first up, we have a public hearing for Hudson Highland Reserve, Route 9. I guess you're supposed to be saying this, but go ahead. Glenn, do you want
wants to get up first, or
This
you
is
want me to
for
read it?
Hudson Highland Reserve, Route 9, Horton Road, Cold Spring, New York, major project, conservation subdivision on 210 acres, 24 residential lots. Each approximately 1 acre served by individual wells and community wastewater treatment facilities through the EIS process. The equestrian center formerly proposed was eliminated. Conditional preliminary subdivision approval was granted on September 21st, 2023. Applicant is now seeking a final subdivision approval. Expected action item, okay. Whether to discuss fair resolution. Glenn? Oh, it's not Glenn. Sorry.
Trying to surprise you. Thank you, Mr. Toman. Mr. Toman, members of the planning board, my name is Judson Siebert. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Keen and Bean on behalf of the applicant, and I am joined by Mr. Watson, Beatty and Watson, and by my colleague George Alisandratos, who was here at the September meeting. I just want to preliminarily clarify something, and that is that the public hearing that has been scheduled and is now proceeding, based on the discussion and the motion made at the September 24th meeting, is for a discrete component of this application. It's for the steep slopes permit. We've made application for final plat approval, but the decision on whether to have a hearing on that final plat approval has not yet been made. We recognized, as did your applicants, that we need to get the special permit for the steep slopes, and I'll let Glenn handle that in a moment. But just looking at the agenda, I was concerned that there may be some confusion that we're here to discuss the entire project tonight. We're on a narrow topic of the steep slopes permit.
Thanks for pointing that out.
And Glenn is in a much better position to talk about steep slopes than I am, so
It's
I'll...
a tough act to follow.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
okay, great, thanks.
Good evening. As Mr. Siebert said, that we're here to present and have our public hearing regarding the steep slopes permit. I'm sure you'll recall there was oversight on more than one project here on the necessity for this permit. And we sort of rode the coattails of the other project when we figured that out. So we're here to show you that plan and discuss it. I just wanted to let you know this first slide. This is the inaugural planning board session where you're seeing the slides.
Pretty high tech here.
So anyway, what you see up there on the screens is the overall 25 lot subdivision, 24 residential lots, 22 of which will be new homes. There are 2 existing homes, and the 25th lot is the commercial lot on the road. We'll be talking about the very top part of that, slightly off of that, that's clipped on the top. Yeah, there we go. So we're towards the upper left on that screen, you'll see the road in from Route 9 coming in, and that and a couple of other areas necessitated construction on slopes that are more than 35% steep or 35% or greater, and we're trying to we tried to minimize that to the greatest extent possible, but there is some required there. That was just absolutely unavoidable. And there's a couple of places along the proposed road where we also feel it's unavoidable. If we could go to, I think we just go to the third one. And what you see there, and I'm gonna, is some light green and dark green. along the road in from Route 9. Again, the new Route 9 intersection is up the upper left-hand corner of your screen. You'll see, as you come in, you'll see light green and dark green. The light green is just to get that out of the way. The light green are slopes that do not require a permit because they're for utility corridors, and that's permitted without a special permit. The dark green, however, does require a special permit. And I'm going to just take a second and grab my board. Just because I don't remember the numbers. We have about just over an acre of disturbance on steep slopes, and of that acre, about 3/4 of an acre requires a permit. It's the dark green areas where we're coming up the hill from Route 9 in particular, and there are a couple of places along the Spine Road which are necessitated by some of the design considerations that were asked for by the planning board. We had to, the first, I wish I had a pointer. I could, I'll hope, so this is the Spine, the main road in. I've spoken about that. There's areas along the main road through the property where we have some grading that's required out of necessity. One of the reasons is in order to provide enough distance between the historic road to have a lot, we got close to the edge of the steep slopes, and it just was required. We had asked for a slightly larger backyard variance that would have helped there, but it didn't happen. So we're seeking a permit for these two areas along the main road in. And then finally, there's a, this came off the slide. There's a cul-de-sac road that's towards the bottom of your screen. You can see towards the bottom left of the screen, you see another little patch of steep slopes. And at the end of that's that short cul-de-sac on the west side of the lake. And there was a considerable concern about the ability of the animals to pass through, and we had a cul-de-sac at the end of that road. In order to widen that corridor to satisfy the concern for the animals corridor, in order to widen it, we eliminated the cul-de-sac, shortened the road by roughly 100 feet, and then we substituted a hammerhead type turnaround, which required us to put basically a big parking spot off the road, which had to be supported by a retaining wall. So there's some steep slopes disturbance in there that needs a permit. I think that's about my whole story. So we've provided you with the maps, and we've provided you with our suggested justifications for that, and hope that you will see fit to grant the permit.
So you were trying to fix a connectivity problem with the animals?
That's
and
correct.
So that's the only reason that's even there in
That's
the
correct.
request, in the permit?
Exactly right.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Glenn. So we've got a public hearing. Everybody signed up? Anybody had a chance to sign up? So the way we're going to do this is we'll have the, I kind of like the lights being down a little bit. So I think what we're going to do, we'll have the public hearing, and then we'll ask for comments from the board, and then we'll sort of wrap it up with some of our technical advisors. And we normally try to, and again, just to preface, we're here to talk about the permit, the steep slopes adjustment, that permit only. We're not here to rehash the whole thing. And we do try to stay with 3 minutes, and so I have to say 3 minutes is your friend. 3 minutes is a good thing because it makes you get to it. And you lose people after 3 minutes anyway, so. Can you read?
Madeline McGinley. Was the people who checked it
Oh, I see, okay.
off.
Madeline?
See if anyone else.
My name is Madeline McGinley. I live at 534 East Mountain Road North. I've been there for almost 22 years. So the steep slope, this road that they're asking for the variance for the steep slope is their main access from Route 9. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. So my question is, has the DOT approved that main entrance off of Route 9? Because it connects to this, and it's the main way in. And I think you should ask that of the applicant. Because if they don't get that DOT approval, it means that they're gonna come in from East Mountain Road North, which is a very tight and narrow, curvy road, and it's just not appropriate to serve 24 homes. As I remember from that other meeting, getting the DOT approval for Route 9 was a condition of the pre-approval. So I wanted to know what the status of that was, because basically this is a moot point to get this. If they don't get this, then why do they need this approval? How else do they, you understand? So they're connected. Thank you.
Bettina Oots.
Hi, Bettina Utz, also East Mountain Road North, 17 years now. Very similar to what Madeline said, the DOT has to approve first. That's a condition on the project overall. And then we go to the steep slopes. We're kind of between a rock and a hard place here, because if we don't approve steep slopes and the DOT doesn't want this entrance on Route 9, then they're going through our road. It's not going to work out. The construction and all the homes cannot, the homeowners cannot go through our road. Just yesterday, I was waiting to get out at like 7:30 a.m. and there were two cars in front of me, a truck and a car, and it took me, I timed it 3 minutes to even just get out a right turn onto Route 9. That's just us living there. No construction yet and no 24 people. So I think we have to be super thorough here. If they can't go off of Route 9, I don't see how it's going to work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Butensky. Okay. Ed Bushik.
I have a question about the performance bond.
If you could address the microphone, please.
Okay. It's not about steep slopes though, so
Yeah, I'm afraid that's what we're here to talk about.
because there was a letter, maybe I should get up.
Well, just for the record, yeah, we're supposed to have you step up and state your name, and then everybody at home can hear you. Everybody on YouTube.
It wasn't. Hello. My name is Ed Bushek. I live in Fishkill, just over the borderline. I had a question about the performance bond, and I wanted to know how much it was going to be for this project. I recently attended a Fishkill Planning Board meeting, and they had requested a performance bond from Continental Commons for $2.6 billion. So I'm wondering what the amount of the performance bond would be from Philipstown. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alice Krakauer. Okay. Craig Murcheski.
Good evening. Craig Mashesky, 60 Old Albany Post Road here in Cold Spring. Regarding the steep slope approval here, as Madeline had pointed out about DOT approval, I want to remind you that just at the base there, you now have approved 18-wheelers delivering oil daily. You have now, for the new project that essentially will go through for the oil company, You now have 18-wheelers approaching into the new lumber station that's also now here, okay? You also had a massive 4-car pileup yesterday in front of that lumber yard, which then caused a massive backup all the way into the village of Cold Spring to come around to Breakneck to get to Beacon. But those from Beacon couldn't get south. They had to go around as well. This road here at this junction point to enter into this area has such a phenomenal amount of traffic. Yesterday's accident caused hours of backup. That is a life-threatening situation to so many people who might need emergency services. So I just point out to you, before this gets approved, we have got to have some sort of DOT approval on this tiny little corner. Right there. And that's where this accident happened yesterday. I watched a woman pinned in the back of her car. The driver was thrust into the back seat and was pinned. She tried to pull out of the jewelry store onto Route 9 and couldn't make it. Thank you.
Check 7. I wanna ask if there's anyone else. Just if there's anyone else who wants.
Is there anybody else that came to speak in the public hearing? No. Thanks, thank you, Cheryl. So if, there's nobody else, Mr. Paul Hemus?
Good evening. My name's Ed Paul Hemus, and I got a question for the engineer. And this driveway that comes down on the Route 9, does that meet DOT specs as far as the approach north and south? And
Mr. Paul Hemus, this is a public hearing. It's really not the format where we have a back and forth or any sort of exchange. We can.
okay, I'm sorry about that.
It's
Yeah,
just
well,
procedural.
I was just, I'm assuming that there has been some studies here on that entranceway, and I'm certainly that that DOT would probably permit the permit, or grant the permit, however you want to look at it, for this development, and I sure hope they do. So, and I'm sure the engineer has looked at all the steep slopes here, and Beatty Watson's engineers have looked at the steep slopes, and I think they've done a pretty good job on what they're doing, so that this can move ahead.
Thank you, sir. Certainly know something about roads, Mr. Paul Hemus. So we'll take it to, did we adjourn? No, we didn't adjourn yet. So motion to close the public hearing?
Make the motion.
Second? Anybody second?
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. So we'll take it to the board. We'll just go from left to right. Heidi?
I guess I don't really have anything to add to the comments I've already made in the past about the project, but nothing in particular today. I will just note that we are constantly being asked to sort of essentially let the steep slopes rules of the town go. And it is a little concerning because we have major storm problems. I mean, the steep slopes will have to be cut into by moving large quantities of soil and blasting rock, I take it.
We don't expect that the entry road will be any blasting on that. It's a soil bank, and there were very deep borings made to show that. In fact, you had already, this board, I know many of you weren't here, this board actually was very close to approving a permit, and the state was for soil mining, so we don't expect that. There is one place, there's one place up here Where we're along a steep slope, we'll probably have to rip down some rock out of that. I don't,
That's what I must be remembering, that you
Yeah.
mentioned that you'd be tearing
yeah,
rock out.
but I don't expect any on the entry road, period.
I mean, I just think it's a concern because we're having more and more, storm runoff, water problems. And
I-
I know, we have to be very thoughtful about the steep slopes because the rules exist for a reason, but that's all my comment.
If, may I respond?
Absolutely.
Okay, if, there was a significant amount of study on this. There was a study on the East Mountain Road North entry possibility. That was deemed to have too much potential impact. There was, Horton Road was studied, that was too much potential impact. Those are the only two town roads that have access into this piece of property. And when those were foreclosed, essentially, the only option we had was to come in from Route 9. We do not have a DOT permit, but as I think we explained at one earlier meeting, DOT does not issue the permit until you're ready to go and put a shovel in the ground. But we have submitted a letter from DOT. We have been through most of the design process, and we have, and the evidence was submitted as evidence that we're on that track, and DOT anticipates issuing a permit.
Can you just repeat why the steep slopes? I understand the argument for the steep slopes disturbance down on the left side of the map, but what is the reason for the steep slope disturbance on the more the right side?
In here,
Yeah.
it's just, what we want to do is that we're providing an emergency access route down to East Mountain Road North, and we want to use the existing driveway from the Fazenda House, thank you, from the Fazenda House. And in order to make our road align with that driveway, we're going to have to get close to that rock. And we may push it over a little bit if we can, but we expect we'll have to take a little bit of that rock out.
Okay.
Laura?
No, I don't have any comments, but I just do want to reiterate that we've brought it up before in the past regarding Route 9. And I think we, as a planning board, have made our position stated to the town board, and we may want to just do that again. Because we are up against a lot of comments in everything that is along the Route 9 corridor. So, I don't think that this will be the last.
Dennis?
Well, if I'm reading Ron's report correctly and my memory correct, that the project is contingent for approval based on the DOT approval of that entryway. So I'm not sure if. Yeah.
Right. We have to do this first. Right? We have to do this first before the DOT is going to
Yes.
give you a hard
the
answer.
The DOT, essentially the DOT wants to shorten any time that's spent constructing the intersection or doing any work on Route 9. So what they do is they hold up the process until you're ready to go and you get the permit at the last minute or very shortly before you start, and you're expected to complete it. They bond it, incidentally, but they just want you in and out.
Right.
And that's one of the ways they control it.
Well, you see that a lot. You see that a lot with DEC permitting too. They really want to make sure you're ready to go before they want to see everything. They want to know what they're signing off on. So it's
Right.
not an unfamiliar concept in a lot of these
Makes
approvals.
sense. It
A lot of
makes
these
sense.
approval processes sort of work that way, so it's not something new. Peter?
Well, it's not new. It sounds like blackmail to me.
What's blackmail?
Well, I mean, you have to.
Here you go.
It just seems that they're asking you to circumvent code requirements so that they will give you permission to have this entryway into Route 9.
it's putting the cart before the horse. But I understand that this is kind of the way it's done, so.
I beg to differ with you that historically, the DOT permit and Mr. Gaynor's approvals of the final plan, his final review is the subject of a condition of final approval. That's what you've been doing for as long as I've been coming to this planning board meeting, and that's been over 50 years. So this is the first time it was ever presented as a preliminary, as a prerequisite to final approval. First time.
Okay, well, it's news to me, and I've been here for a while, and you've been here much longer, so I bow to you.
Thank you, Peter. I don't really have any comments on this. I'm going to sort of think everybody's had a chance. Some of my questions have been asked and answered. So, Ron, do you want to weigh in? Let's go.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I have similar concerns, the same as Heidi, stormwater runoff. But has there been any geotechnical analysis on the steep slopes and the roads nearby? And you mentioned that the subsurface is soils.
Well, the soil, there were borings, in the vicinity of the road, as I mentioned before. So there has been some. But this plan is accompanied by a drainage analysis and a stormwater and pollution prevention plan that's capturing the water and metering it back out, or either infiltrating it into the ground by capturing it in basically a big tank with a bottomless tank that captures the water and lets it seep into the ground and go back into the groundwater where it's captured within the subdivision, and then meters it out so that it gets to its final this final point in the system, which will be Clove Creek. It gets to that at the same rate and as it does in any storm. So all of that has been addressed and will be finally reviewed by Mr. Gaynor before it's approved.
So no geotechnical analysis has been done?
Other than the borings and analyzing the borings, that's correct.
Okay. My only concern is you're breaking up bedrock, you're going to have vibration concerns, noise concerns that are going to permeate throughout the local area.
We don't anticipate, other than that one small area, we don't anticipate breaking bedrock up to build that road. That's what I said before, I believe.
Okay.
Ron? Any comments?
Sure,
Want to elaborate on anything?
Yeah, the project has been before the board approaching 10 years. The point of access from Route 9, which was a point of access that the board had directed the applicant study because they did not want access onto any local town roads for the reasons described by the applicant. So the road has been in that location from early on in the process. It's been studied throughout that entire period of your environmental review. The need for this special permit only became clear very late in the process, and that's why you're only including this matter as a special public hearing at this point in time. You've had other public hearings throughout the environmental review. You've had public hearings on the preliminary subdivision approval, but in none of those has anything changed in terms of the design layout, grades of that roadway. So it's been known to the board from early on in this process.
Mm-hmm. That the access is going to have to be
Right,
under nine.
and the need for the disturbance of these steep slopes was known.
Right.
And the extent of the disturbances was understood through the variety of the technical plans presented. So it's not new to the board, it's just a matter now of recognizing that the zoning ordinance requires a public hearing on the special permit as well. It has not been done, and so it's being scheduled tonight.
Steve, I'm going to ask you, well, do you have any comments? And then I'm going to ask you a question. So do you have do you have anything you want to add to this?
Sure, the board's many times passed on steep slopes applications. You all are familiar with the criteria. If there's no way that the property can be developed in an area that's not steep slopes, or it would be more disruptive to develop in an area that wouldn't involve steep slopes, then the applicant, I won't say is entitled to, but has made a showing that they're entitled to the permit unless there are significant countervailing circumstances. Here you can see they've laid out the roadway, and I'll defer to the engineers, of course, but I mean, in at least a reasonable manner. I don't know that if they laid it out in some other manner that they would wind up with less disturbance than what they're proposing.
Right.
So anyway, that's the issue for the board to determine on this. In terms of the application at this point, it's pretty straightforward. You've closed the public hearing, and you either are going to ask for more information from the applicant, or you're going to direct your engineering consultant to prepare a resolution either granting or denying the application. It's pretty cut and dried.
All right, so I'm thinking back to a few years ago, we had an application across from the Garrison Fish and Game Club, which was almost identical, that we had to weigh whether or not, what's the impact of trying to make the grades work or just making somewhat of an exception to the steep slope. So again, it's not like it hasn't happened. So Steve, the second question, and I don't want to take up too much time, it's a little bit outside the scope of what we're supposed to be talking about, but it did come up a couple of times about what is the, and you've done this before, give us just a brief assessment of the limitations. What are the limitations of the planning board on this traffic issue on Route 9? Because I think we've been through this where we don't really know what we can do. It's a little bit outside the purview of the planning board to start saying who can get in and who can develop or can't develop on Route 9. So we just recently approved another rather large application on Route 9. So could you just speak to that briefly so we
Sure.
can kind of think about that a little bit?
The bottom line is that while it's appropriate to look at the impacts that traffic on Route 9 has on the layout and the operation of a site, you can't ask a particular property owner to solve existing problems on Route 9. And you know that the traffic volume is, and the truck traffic has been a problem just for ages. The board's wrestled with it over and over again. So it is an appropriate thing to consider in terms of, are we going to limit, for example, the hours that there can be large truck deliveries to a site? It may be, depending on where it is on, the roadway and what the sight lines are and things like that. But to say we're going to limit your development because of the existing conditions on Route 9 just because of the existing conditions and not because of something idiosyncratic to the site, the things they propose to do there, is beyond the purview of this board.
And would be more appropriate where?
The town board.
Town board
And even the town board is limited. You'd have to go to the county and more particularly the state. It's a state roadway.
Right,
So, you can make recommendations, and this board has done so repeatedly in the past, but to take action in regard to a particular project that's before you based on the existing conditions on Route 9, your authority is very, very limited.
We don't have a lot of room there. Okay, so for now, I guess we're gonna have a vote, and Steve, again, just so we get the wording right, we're looking for an approval
I think the board usually phrases it in terms of approval. It doesn't mean necessarily you vote for approval, but you're looking for a motion to direct the engineering consultant to prepare a resolution approving the steep slope special permit.
Okay, so can I get a motion to that effect to have Ron prepare a resolution to approve?
May I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So we're just asking for, we're not asking for the actual construction to start at this point. We're asking for what exactly? Just a preparation of a plan to how to go about it?
This would be approval of the special permit for steep slopes. It's a requisite for their final subdivision approval. They will be returning to the board after that, once they meet a number of these conditions, for final subdivision approval, and has been noted a number of times. If the board's so inclined, it can require a public hearing on that before voting on it.
All right, so it's not the final?
No, it's
final. Okay, so we're looking for I'm looking for a motion to approve the special permit for the steep slopes exception. Right? Okay, second? All in favor? Aye. Do we have, all opposed? Okay. Heidi, did we get a,
I'm gonna vote in favor.
so what's that? And 5 to 1? And I'll vote aye, yeah. Okay, so we're 5 to 1? And the motion passes, okay. Thank you, Glenn. We're not done?
Can I have just?
We're going to take yes for an answer?
Yeah,
Or,
no, some housekeeping, because as.
You're on a roll here, you sure you want, okay, go ahead.
No, as Mr. Gaba indicated, and is the case, this is one component of the overall application for final. There are conditions of that approval that we continue to work toward. DOT obviously is one, DEC, County Department of Health. A couple of those conditions right now kind of rest on referral by this board of the HOA documents that we submitted to the town board. And I just wondered if that process, if the board has tendered comments. My understanding was that the board would be tendering comments to the town attorney, and then that would head over to the town board.
Town attorney will be, which is me, will be tendering comments to the board, and then the board
Okay.
will review those and report to the town board on those. You can expect those next month.
Great,
Expect those
okay,
in the-
thank you, appreciate it. And just to report to the board with regard to the other town board aspect of this is the conservation easement. We're working on it. I've spoken to Mr. Gaba about moving that process forward and some terms that the town board is looking for. So I just want the board to be aware of that. And then finally, just housekeeping, the board's custom with regard, your town code with regard to the preliminary approval is silent. The New York State town law provides that the preliminary is a 6-month, and it doesn't automatically expire. It's only subject to revocation if the board does it. But your board's custom has always been to grant 6-month extensions. We were here last month. Obviously, we got the public hearing. If I would just ask just to confirm if we could just get confirmation or a motion just to kick the 6-month period out again for a second time. As
For
we
a
continue.
second time, Steve?
No, it's the first time, I believe, isn't it?
First time?
No, second? The second or first?
First is of right, right?
First is as of right. Second, unless there's been some change
Yeah,
in
right.
circumstances, you pretty much have to grant it anyway.
This is the third, yeah.
Third.
Okay.
All right, well, same thing.
And is the holdup's not your doing?
No,
No?
no, yeah.
Okay. So, Steve, do we need to?
Yeah, there should be a motion to extend preliminary
For-
approval for 6 months.
Okay, can I hear a motion to that effect? Second? All in favor? Aye. I vote aye, thank you. We're good?
And I'm done. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Glenn's been doing this since the Mets last won in the World Series. Think about that. Okay, next up. It's some old, yeah. Okay, we'll let him file out. All right, thanks. We have old business. This is Amanda Vasta, 9 Cliffside Court. Go ahead, read that. Yeah, I'm hogging. Oh, we don't have to read it every time? Oh, okay. Amanda Vasta, Minor action, okay, board to discuss memorandum received from applicant's engineer, Greg Warner, and the Conservation Board. Okay, please give us your name and who you're working with.
My name is John Carell.
Oh, John, yeah.
I'm the engineer. This is Amanda Vasta, the owner. This is Peter Holzer, who's the surveyor.
Well, hang on a second here,
Uh-oh.
somebody, there we go. Yeah, that's right. Go ahead.
This is a single-family house on approximately 1 acre of land. This lot was created in the 1970s by a subdivision in the town of Philipstown on Cliffside Court. The development of this property results in 0.8 of an acre of disturbance on a 1.12 acre lot. It's a 2-bedroom house, and it's recognized that there's significant slopes on this property, which the ZBA granted variances for previously. And this plan shows the steep slopes. They're all steep slopes. This whole property is steep slopes. The beige is whatever is this? The beige is 20 to 35%. The white is 0 to 20%, and the pink is over 35%. But the ZBA has granted a variance. I mean, this lot exists the way it. I mean, forever, and it's on a private road, and I know Ron, there was a comment letter from Ron in June of '24, which I responded to recently, and Ron gave me a updated comment letter today. I went through it. I mean, there's some issues there. One of the things was the tree plan, and there is a tree plan on this plan, except that when the printing came through, the trees are light, and it's hard to see. There are 30 trees over the 8-inch size to be removed, but there are hundreds of trees on this property. This property is heavily vegetated, a lot of ledge rock. The septic system is here. It had an approval by the health department, which has expired. However, the health department has changed their standards to reduce the design flow per bedroom. So the septic system is now in the health department for renewal and revision, because we're going to be able to reduce the septic system in size, and therefore the volume of fill that's necessary for the septic system is going to be significantly reduced.
Okay. I want to start off, maybe Steve, we can recap. I'm just trying to get myself up to speed on this, or sort of remember what was going on with this. With the town, what was the ruling from the town when they had a resolution about whoever was going to go in needed to bring the road up to, I guess, DOT standards, and then there's been sort of a little back and forth. You want to elaborate on that?
Sure. The town enacted revisions to the ODA provisions, Open Development Area, ODA, provisions in the town code. And in essence, in a nutshell, what those revisions said is when you have a private roadway, which has, I believe it's more than 10 homes on it, you must, if you're going to build on the roadway, build the roadway, or at least the portion of it between your residence and connecting roadway, up to town road standards. Town road standards are pretty substantial. In the event that you feel you cannot build the roadway up to town road standards, then you can have, through legitimate engineering proof, it has to be substantiated, a request to this board to allow a lesser standard private road standard, although if there are areas in which the town road standard can be met, then, you know, you do as much as you can to the town road standards. If you can't meet private road standards, then you can ask for the basic open development area road standards, which is essentially access, suitable, safe and suitable ingress and egress for emergency vehicles. That's a standard for basic ODA roads. So what this applicant has been grappling with since the beginning of this application is what needs to be done to this roadway in order to meet the new ODA standards.
Who signs off on the lesser standard?
This board.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll have to be, you know, they'll have their engineer submit, and you'll have Ron review it, and you come to some sort of a finding based on, you know, their representations as to what's appropriate standards for the upgrade of this roadway. But before we really got to that, there was a couple of initial issues. The first was the inability of the applicant to meet the steep slope standards for construction. And they had to apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance. I think there was a second variance too, wasn't there? They applied for?
There's a couple issues, yeah.
These enhanced regulations that come out of the new district that was formed a couple of years ago mandate that they had to, they couldn't have construction in greater than 35%, and they also needed ZBA action for placement of the house in grades of greater than 20%. They've been before the ZBA, as the engineer indicates. ZBA has acted to grant those variances to those new regulations, so that was done this past July. There's a third requirement that has not yet been addressed by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I presume that would be the subject of another referral tonight to make that obvious. But these new regulations that got passed also mandate that lot coverage cannot exceed 10%. They currently are at 19.6%. So that it's now been confirmed with the attorney that that also requires a Zoning Board of Appeals action. So that should be referred back to the ZBA to consider that as well. That's not a matter that you can address.
All right, so we need to make a motion. We're gonna have to vote on that.
Yes, but before we get there.
I'm feeling I'm gonna be making a list.
There was a second issue in processing it that, you know, kind of prevented getting to the ODA road issue. And that was that as to subdivisions, I don't believe you can, it says specifically in the code, grant the approval if there are outstanding violations. In terms of site plans, it's also been found by this board, traditionally at least, to also be applicable. The board's practice, notwithstanding that they could process it up to the point of granting it and then, you know, just not grant it until the violation is resolved, has been not to process applications when there are outstanding violations unless the violation is sought to be resolved through the application to the planning board. Because what's the point of processing it if you can't grant it? It's the idea, as I think Neil said a couple of times, to just be wasting everybody's time. So they have an outstanding violation in terms of placing fill on this property. And the applicant had sent a letter or an email, I forget which, suggesting that rather than being made to remove the fill to go forward, they be allowed to bond the removal of the fill. And this board asked the building inspector for an opinion. You have in your packet a memo or a letter from Greg Warner saying that he would be amenable to that sort of resolution, because if they get their approval at the end of the day, they're not going to have to remove, I think they're tailings and millings that are on the property. And so why take them out and then just have to reinstall them later on? So he said that a bond or other undertaking of $15,000 should be sufficient to remediate the condition in the event that, you know, the applicant fails to follow through on their agreement to do so if they don't get their approvals. So if this board's so inclined, you can overcome that obstacle tonight if you vote to allow a undertaking to be posted in regard to the outstanding violation. The recommended amount is $15,000, but of course that's up to the board.
Okay. So, Ron, we need to vote on whether to send it back to the ZBA for the area, the coverage, the percentage.
You should make the Zoning Board of Appeals aware that they have to take that action.
And you should mention that.
Do we have to vote to send it back, or do we just have Cheryl make that recommendation?
Right, you should take that action tonight. There's, separately, and you see it in my technical memorandum, because steep slopes are involved, there's an obligation to make referral to the Conservation Board.
Right, well, that was getting to that, but
Obtain
yeah.
their opinion. They've weighed in once with an earlier letter, but that letter just served to identify the significant concerns they had over the potential development of the tract, given the very significant slopes on it. And they requested further information from the applicant to better understand the concerns they had raised. So the Conservation Board's comments still remain outstanding to assist the board in understanding the extent of impacts on this, to this area and to this lot.
So we're waiting for some feedback from the Conservation Board. We need to make a referral to the ZBA, and then we've got this bond issue, which we can we can vote on now, whether to approve the bond. The board will go, let's go my right to left now. Any comments?
No, I don't have any comments.
No? Peter?
No, I think Greg kind of covers it, and so does Andy.
So Greg's memo, yeah.
Yeah,
Greg's memo, and did you see the letter from the Conservation Board? Everybody saw that? Okay, so I
It's my lines.
feel like
I
we know.
didn't really understand the anonymous letter. It seemed a little confusing, but I'm fine.
Okay. Dennis?
I'm okay, I understand what's going on here.
Where we're at. Lori? Laura?
No comment.
No? Heidi?
I mean, I think we're still waiting to hear from the Conservation Board on this project.
Right, well, that's, yeah, so I think the only thing we're really ready to vote on, well, we need to vote on whether to get a referral to the ZBA for the area, the buildable area, get a ruling on that, and then we need to vote on whether or not we want to approve Greg Warner's recommendation to have them post a bond for removing the millings.
I would just say, I would think to know whether Greg's recommendation makes sense, we need to know whether the Conservation Board thinks there's any problem with the stream. I mean, I don't, so at this juncture, without hearing from the Conservation Board on that, I would be inclined to vote against the bond because we don't know sitting here today whether the material would have to be removed. So I do think that's really putting the cart before the horse in terms of voting on whether a bond will be adequate. I just would ask that we could hear from the Conservation Board before that vote, or I'll vote against it, I guess, if everybody else doesn't have that concern.
Are we waiting for another memorandum from the Conservation Board? Because there's one here that was in our package for July 11th.
Yeah, we're definitely waiting for
Okay.
Yeah, we're still waiting.
Can I say something?
Certainly.
There's no stream on that property. There's, the water on that property comes down, and maybe when it gets towards the road a little bit, it channels whatever water comes off the hill, and there's down gradient, there's a pipe that crosses the road and a catch basin. There's really no stream, it's a pile of rock. And the millings, so you know, are in the area where the driveway's gonna go. So, I mean, we don't object to posting a bond, but you should know that that's where the driveway's gonna go. Hopefully this is gonna get approved and that those millings are gonna be used in construction of the driveway.
Okay, so can I hear let's do the vote to send it, make a referral back to the ZBA to resolve the building area percentage issue. So can I get a second? All in favor? Aye. I vote aye. Okay, so we send that back to the ZBA. And then the second question being whether or not to approve the bond as proposed by Greg Warner on the removal, pending the removal of the millings, or to wait for the other option being to wait for some feedback from the Conservation Board, who I put a lot of faith in. They always, seem to find, they just have a different lens than we do. So they're there for a reason. I think it's prudent to wait for them. Go ahead, Dennis.
I have a question probably to Ron, I guess to Ron, regarding Greg's estimate on the bonding value. Does that seem in line with what's there? I mean,
Uh,
and that's
I-
a hard one to call, Ron, I don't mean to put you on the
Right,
spot, but.
the matter was never referred to my office, only to Greg's. He's identified the issue of $15,000 as his belief to be correct. I take no exception to that. It is an issue that there's material involved as tailings. It would not be a significant effort to remove. But as I said, I did not look at it in any depth at all.
I mean, when we did the site visit, based on that observation, I think we're good with that value. I just wanted to see if you had any comment on it.
No, thank you.
So can I get, what are we waiting for here? Do the bond. So can I hear a motion to approve
I'll make that motion.
to approve the bond?
Correct, to approve having them provide a bond,
Having them provide a bond as opposed to,
removing it.
or not addressing it just yet?
Right,
Okay,
right.
until we hear back from the Conservation Board. So, okay. Let me get this right. So what, Steve, help me out here. What are we asking for? We're asking for a resolution to approve the bond recommendation by the building department.
If you want to phrase it that way, that's fine.
Okay. Can I get a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Any seconds?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
2. Peter?
I have to say I'd want to wait for the Conservation Board.
And I do too.
And you want, Heidi, you prefer to wait?
Yes.
Peter, you prefer to wait? I'm gonna wait too. Okay, so, it was denied. With the numbers?
2, 4, and 3 again.
2, 4, 3 against. All right, so we'll wait for some feedback. We're gonna make the referral to the ZBA about the building area, and then we're gonna wait and hear what we get from the Conservation Board. All right?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. KBP? KBP. Is anybody here from KBP? Somebody didn't get a memo or something? Isn't it Margaret? Oh, that's a horrible fate.
Town or city? My daughter's the clerk on the.
201 Old West Point Road. It's up behind the old Marcinak property there. Major site plan. Major site plan inspector should be, okay, make referral to outside agencies. Okay, so we're looking for some referrals here. So you want to tee this up for us, Glenn? And
Yeah, I don't have an awful lot to say, and I don't have an awful lot of knowledge about this particular project, but as you mentioned, it's down by the old Marcinek property. It's at the intersection of Old West Point Road West and Route 9. There's, they're proposing a new entrance from Route 9. Apparently, Margaret's met with DOT and got a favorable response. We have done some septic testing. We feel we can get in there. And I guess that's really about what I know about this project, to tell you the truth.
Right. Well,
So we're just here to
we're
receive
here
your
for a
comments
first
and get your
look, so that's
referrals.
okay, yeah. We can, I think we have enough to make the referrals. You said she's getting some positive feedback from the DOT about?
She met with the DOT, she told me she met with the DOT, and they're fine with the driveway location as proposed.
Because it's further down, it's not coming out of Old West Point Road.
No, it's not.
Because that was a sticking point. Why, there's something about this that's very familiar. There's
The Old West Point
hard
Road-
left turn to go north.
Yeah, Old West Point Road is a difficult road to get out of.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
but this is,
This
sort
is
of
down here,
down here, they,
on the south side
okay,
of the
so you've
stone
got better
garage.
sight lines. So down there, you're more across from the firehouse, are you?
Well, closer, sure.
Closer to
I
the
don't know
fire-
exactly
oh.
where we are, but,
Sort of between the Castle Continental and,
yeah. I think so.
and then the firehouse, right?
If you picture Marcinek's, the garage building is right up close to the road, is on this piece.
Right.
The road
Okay.
Just south of that, the north end of the Guy Coburn's old place.
Okay. Well, I'll let some other people go first, but I got a couple questions here. Anybody want to weigh in on this? Heidi? And then we'll go to Steve and Ron.
Well, aren't we just doing the referrals now? Or,
Well, yeah, but
okay.
any
I-
first
I-
impressions, anything you want to, I've got a couple things I want.
Well, okay, the only thing I would just ask is, so this is yet another thing that's coming onto Route 9, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and how many vehicles? It's a big.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I know,
really have
that's
no
why I
thoughts
feel
here.
bad asking my question, so, I don't know, if we're just, maybe, so I won't ask any more questions till Margaret's here. We're just doing referrals, whatever. Yeah,
And,
You could just make the referrals, and we'll be, I think Ron's got a report on this one, which we'll address for the next meeting.
okay, all right, so why don't we, maybe, my mistake, maybe we should just stick to the referrals?
You want a site visit?
No, not really, I'm sorry. We'll have a public hearing on this, we'll have a site visit that you can attend, but this is just we're here to get referrals, this is just laying some of the groundwork, we call some of the bulk items that we try to clear out of the way, but there will be ample opportunity for you to comment on this. And I've got questions too, so, there's plenty of time. I appreciate you coming out, though. I mean, it's good, it's all part of the process. So, Ron, so I've got DOT, BO, is it going to the Board of Health?
Just let's recall how the project has made it to this point in time. The applicant actually occupied the property without receipt of planning board approval, and he had been in town court, and was directed to initially appear before this board to start that process of site plan approval. They actually were directed to appear last January. That started this process before you. However, they had only retained Beatty and Watson shortly before that appearance date, and so the January appearance, the application was very incomplete. The board then just accepted the information, sought more detailed information to make the application perfected. And then they came in some months later with a more improved site plan. The applicant received technical comments to make various refinements to either the plans or the environmental documents that were filed. Those recently came in. When they last appeared before you, you actually formally authorized the referral of the application to all outside agencies, but conditioned upon receipt of architectural plans. Those plans have only just now come in for this meeting, and so the board is now prepared to make those referrals.
All right, so
I
a
don't
little
know that you need
premature here.
another- You don't need to direct they be done, but you can acknowledge that sufficient materials are in hand to accomplish the referrals that you've directed be done. So that's now at a point that they've done, that they can be done. You had also, at the previous meeting, directed that a coordinated environmental review be done, and you declared your intent to become lead agency. But again, none of that notice to outside agencies was accomplished, barring the filing of the additional information that was requested in the architectural plans to identify better the scope of the project.
All right, so we just got the information we need to make the
Exactly. So
referrals.
those referrals, for both the outside agencies as well as the secret referrals, can now be accomplished based on the referrals made.
Okay,
Or
and
the
so we don't need to
documents
make any, we don't need to vote on anything, it's all in motion already.
I don't know that you do. I'm just describing what previous actions you've taken.
They should still know what referrals are being made.
Yep, okay.
And they don't need to vote again, but they do
All
it
right, so
directly if they go out.
we're on the record, the referrals have been made, now we have some plans. Maybe next month we'll come back, Margaret, we'll hopefully be back from Poughkeepsie.
From
by next
Poughkeepsie, I
month.
hope. I was hoping she'd be here.
Only,
I would-
unless you
I
take
would-
a Route 9, then that could take a while, yeah.
Considering that we're moving into the winter, the board might
directed they get
consider
filed.
scheduling a site visit.
I was thinking about that, is it, well,
They should still say it.
so,
Yes. So just thinking from the
You're like the
referrals-
two old guys, you remind me of the old guys in the Muppets up in the,
Yeah.
up in the balcony sometimes, in
I
there,
love those guys.
More ways than one.
you know?
Referrals are involved, the Department of Transportation for the highway access to Route 9, Department of Planning for the 239M referral that's required, and Putnam County Department of Health for
Okay,
the water and sewer systems.
all right, so they've all been,
They will be done now.
they will be done now, okay. And the fire department? And conservation board, we've done, have we done fire and conservation board?
No.
You'd indicated they were discretionary. and I
Right.
think that they directed them last time, didn't they?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so, all of those.
Okay.
Just direct that they go out now, you don't need to vote on it if you don't.
Oh, nothing, okay, so there's nothing really for us to
They
do.
are and say those referrals are going out at this time.
Okay, so those referrals are going out, so I'm sure we'll see you next month.
We're gonna have a site visit, or?
Yeah, then, now that that's been
Oh, the site
addressed
visit.
and understood, the next step in this process for this board would just be the conduct of a site inspection.
Okay.
So
which
that's
would-
really before you now.
All right, so that wouldn't, and, right, that wouldn't be premature, so, oh, yeah, the date, what was, we, the 17th? And,
Can I ask a quick question?
sure,
So, are they able to legally operate? Because are they
Yeah, they-
operating now?
Ron, where are they with their, are they operating under, what's it zoned anyway? What, is it mixed use, or?
It's highway commercial.
Highway
HC.
commercial,
I cannot tell you if they're occupied, I know that there's equipment on the property, I don't know if it's formally being,
right,
if they're conducting a business. Craig Warner, the building inspector, has been involved in the
I know there's
project,
been,
but
there's been some back and forth with this applicant. I seem to remember a pre-app meeting a while
Right.
ago where we had some things to
it's
work out.
approaching a year, that's right.
Right. So we don't know, I guess is
You
the
could, you
answer.
could seek, you could seek a report from the building department if you wish, just to know the status.
Okay. Again, we'll have time to hash this. So Glenn, you're taking notes, kind of know what's coming as far as questions?
Yes.
My one, I did look it up on the stream mapper. You have the Ansville Creek right there. It doesn't show up as a wetland, so, you know, everything on the SEAF looks legit, but it's still a proximity issue. You do have new wetlands regulations that just have gone in the last couple of months, so the EAF stream mapper may or may not be up to date with the new regulations. So we might want to just have Jason check that out. And then the MS4 requirement for trucks and garages like this, if they're going to be washing any equipment. All right, so that's still down the road with the MS4, but usually what people are doing with the approval is to get a way to handle that wastewater now and get a handle on it, but that's up to Max. If that would be Max's call.
Right.
So another reason, so another thing we're gonna be asking about, so just wanted to bring that up, just make sure you're aware of some of the newer regulations that are coming in. Okay, I think that's it. We're not really voting on it. Oh, site visit. Site visit, November 11th, November 17th is the day, so we can have Neil there.
You usually do.
Are we gonna try and do, okay, yeah, no, yeah, 9, try and do 9:30? 9:30. Okay,
What's the
30
date?
and the 17th?
9:30 on the
Is the
17th?
site inspection? Okay.
Okay. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. What's that?
You don't have to.
No, I don't think we vote on site visits. They are. Oh, thank you for reminding me. Glenn, could you have the applicant stake out anything, stake out the footprint? You know the drill. Okay. Give us something to work with. Thanks.
Is there a way to actually get dialed in on the process, so like Glenn reported that there's been some movement with the DOT? How would I know what happens? Like the
Well, you'll hear it. That'll all be hashed out at the next meeting here. I mean, we're,
Is that done in writing, the discussions that are happening for the approval for the new driveway?
they're all, well, yeah, they all get documented.
I just have some questions as to
I mean, it's all, I'm sure it's all foilable. I mean, you know, okay. Yeah, Tim, again, I appreciate you coming out, but it's just, you know, we just have a way of doing it, and we try to minimize the back and forth unless it's an appropriate setting. Okay. So- Site visit, yeah. Go to the site. Site visit's a good way to do it, yeah.
That's site inspection.
Okay, KBP, and new business. Sort of.
So new.
Guess who's back? Back again. Shakespeare's back.
While those are coming up, good evening, Mr. Toman, members of the board.
Okay, folks.
Adam Stallero from Cy Paget Brazil on behalf of Hudson Valley Shakespeare. We didn't expect to be back quite so soon on this project, sort of like we never left. But we are pleased to present the proposed site plan application for phase 2 of this project, which is part of the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Master Plan. And this site plan covers artist and guest lodging. We're very excited about this part of the project because it will mean, if this can get done at around the same time as the construction of the theater in time for the 2026 season, that the artists can be on campus and won't have to be housed in hotels in Fishkill, which is a lot of back and forth and an added expense for the organization, and will be a big part of building the community of the theater for the 2026 season. So because the board previously reviewed the master plan environmental impacts under SECRA, this phase 2 of the project was carefully designed so that it fit inside the envelope that had been previously studied. I'll give a overview of the site and then turn over to the project architect, Susie Rodriguez, and her team for some more details. But the master plan studied 44 units or bedrooms of artist and guest lodging in 2 separate areas. Up here in the northeast corner of the site, there were 12 units, and then down here, sort of more on the northwest portion of the site, there were 32 units. So what we're talking about and proposing in site in phase 2 is the 32 units that are over here in this area of the property. Just to orient, the new theater is over here, existing Garrison restaurant and wedding venue is over here. The rehearsal barns are down here. And then you can have a comparison. So just to show a comparison, this is what you have in your handout. What's on the left is what was presented in the EIS. So you had 6 buildings. On the yellow ones or the orange ones are each 4 bedrooms. So there's 4 buildings that have 4 bedrooms, and then the blue building, the 6,000 square foot building, is 16 more 1-bedroom units. And then there was a 1,000 square foot amenities building, and that's been combined so that you still have 4 buildings that have 4 bedrooms, but now there's 1 building that combines the 16 units of 1-bedroom units and the amenities and storage. And there's a small storage building of 265 square feet that's been added. But the net total is, and the design here was to keep the footprint the same as what had been studied. So we're able to achieve some efficiencies in moving some of those functions into that single building. But in the letter that I submitted with the application, you know, I went through some of the secret points, and I'm happy to walk through those in more detail if you'd like. But the impacts are either the same or less as what was approved or previously studied in the EIS. So unless you'd like to go through any of those secret points, I can turn it over to Susie Rodriguez.
No, we can, please. Well, I'm sure we're going to have piles of questions, so.
I'm sure.
I mean, this is sort of a procedure, as you know, is a bit of a procedural round, not to make light of it, but we're just here to lay some of the basic groundwork.
Yep.
Get our referrals, and then, of course, we're going to have all kinds of time to discuss the details. So I appreciate you coming prepared, but for now, for this meeting, let's just keep it as an overview. Give us enough information so we can make the referrals.
Okay. I think I'm as tall as the counter. So,
Just ask her to put up whichever.
okay, hold on, here. Okay. Is that good? Good evening. I'm Susan Rodriguez, the architect for the project from Susan T. Rodriguez Architecture and Design. So I just guess give you a brief introduction as to what we're looking to accomplish. As Adam said, we worked very carefully to try to respect the original master plan, the site, the overall scale and size of what's being proposed. So if you look on the screen in the yellow circle, that is generally the same area of the original DEIS proposal. We're working with an existing network of buildings, existing network of roadways, and then we have introduced.
It's fine.
Okay. So I'll go to the next one, but I think as Adam positioned it down the hill on sort of a flatter area of the site, but we're very much up the hill from the rehearsal spaces on Snake Hill. And so there's an existing roadway, which we've introduced a loop. So if you go to number 2. So this is just a blow-up plan, brings you a little bit closer. The existing road is sort of the diagonal road that cuts from sort of left to right, that comes down from the inn, and then we've introduced the loop. So as just been articulated, there's the four-bedroom cottages, and then what we're calling the big barn. And then as part of that connected is a hub, which is a shared sort of community space for the artists. Next. All of this is arranged around, it's sort of an L-shaped configuration that focuses toward the wooded edge of the site and sort of a nice open green meadow. So here you can see the building's primary materials are a sort of light, a soft gray metal roof and natural wood siding. All of them incorporate porches into them, so that this is really the primary use of this is, as you know, during the summer months, probably 5 months or so, and then in the rest of the year can be rented as been approved prior. But they all have porches and sort of the connection to the natural environment of this beautiful site is going to be really special and a big change for the artists. So here you can see the four bedrooms, the big barn, and then connected by the porch is the hub building that's shared space. Next. Oh, sorry, yes. I guess that's number 3. This is looking in elevation at the big barn. This is where there are the 16 individual studio units. And then to the right is the hub, which has kitchen and dining area shared on the bottom. But each of the individual apartments have their own small kitchenette and sleeping area and bathroom. Next. Oh, I should be telling you what number. Sorry. Okay, that's great. And so this, again, too, is looking at more eye-level elevation at the four porches with their, 4 porches of each of these cottages. And they each have, it's a 2-story building, each of them having a kitchen, living space, dining area in the front, and then 2 bedrooms on the ground level, 2 bedrooms on the upper level, each with their own bath. And then just the final image is in the evening, so really trying to respect dark sky. This doesn't look very evening, though it does on my drawing. So really a soft glow from the houses. And this is very much nestled into the landscape and the topography of the site and quite invisible from any perimeter. It's really in the frame of the trees. So I think that gives you at least a first introduction into that, but I think as Adam laid out, it is very much in keeping with the original intention, except for the refinement of bringing the big barn and the hub sort of into one connected building. So I think that's it. Thank you. And then Glenn is going to add a little bit to that.
Are we going to be able to weave this into the YouTube video? Because this is a great. It's on, so that'll be all cued in. That's great. Yeah, that's great. Good visual support. Big fan of visual support. Lights? Do you want to bring up the lights? Okay. So, I'm going to. Glenn, do you have some more things you want to add, or?
Just a little of the engineering details.
Okay.
So you get a
All right, we'll
flavor of
just-
that. Just to further orient the clubhouse is up here, the big building with the restaurant in it. And this is that loop that takes you up into the parking lot. And then this is a secondary road. It's not used very often. It's often gated, but there's a paved road that goes out and ends up on Phillips Brook Road, just east of the aqueduct. This whole area is the former First Fairway. First Fairway and First Hole. The layout is identical to what Susie just explained to you. There is a traveled way down here, which you can drive a car down on that thing. I don't know what it's repaired, but you really don't want to. So we're talking about a cart or a walking path down to the lower parking area, which is down by the maintenance area that you may recall. The only significant part that I want to talk about really is this access way. We tried a number of things to get here. We have to get here for people have to bring their luggage in and their supplies in and leave, and there will be some traffic some of them will have cars. The main concern was getting fire access in there, and we tried a number of things, and what we ended up with a big stain of pavement right here, which was taking much more room than is necessary. So it's very entertaining to see architects and engineers talk about how to do a traffic line, but so I often have that role of being entertained. So what we basically have is a loop road that comes in, provides a couple of drop-off areas where people can temporarily park a car and unload, or fire truck can come up here and come back out and go back out. So it seems to all work. We're planning to utilize well 3, which is the well that serviced the pro shop. That's in place. We don't need to do that. And the well 3 is probably down on the floor. There is a water line that goes up to the former pro shop. We intend to take off of that and bring service down a relatively short distance. There was some question about the utilities. There will be some utilities, and the health department will be involved with regard to the septic system. When we have from the tremendous, again, here we have a lot of sand, as you can see if you ever go into that maintenance area, but up to the northwest here, where am I? Got to make sure I got this right. Yeah, up in this area, we have a septic system in place. Unfortunately, some of the upper laterals got too close to the building, so we're going to take those out of service and move them downhill to make the difference and to put them where they were actually supposed to go in the first place. They got built a little too high up the hill. So that's relatively easy, a relatively small amount of operation. We do have the capacity, we do have, so we don't, and our flows are still the same as were anticipated in the EIS.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of an overview. The buildings are staked on the ground, and we're all available on the 17th of November.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Glenn. Aaron, I want to go to Aaron, and then I'm sure we have some maybe some preliminary questions and comments, then we'll get back to the board in a second. But I want to start with Aaron and
for the record,
get us going here.
Aaron Werner from AKRF, consultant for the planning board on certain projects, including this one. So I did submit a memo on the 14th. I can go through that quickly. We have a project description in there where we basically displayed what Mr. Stollerow also summarizes. There's a couple of images in there that show that this was included in the master plan. There's 2 areas of housing, right? There's the 44 units total. This is 32 of them in what they're calling the western cluster. And I tend to agree that it pretty much lines up with the location that they wanted to do at that time. They fully engineered it at this point. They have a more baked plan, so to speak. So it's looks a little different, but overall the footprint, the square footage, they kept that the same. So I don't really have any comments on whether or not the use and the number of units and the general location and impact of the structures are in line with the seeker, in my opinion. But there are some questions I have, and they're at the end of the memo. But going through I guess I'll skip the project description. I think everybody's got some pretty good information about that. I do have a section about the background. I don't know if you want me to touch on some of that about the zoning that was now in place that allows this, or if that's not.
What are your concerns? Give us because we're going to do it with everybody.
Yeah, I can jump down.
I mean, everybody looks at this, and you've got a couple things that are just going, okay, wait, what,
Sure, I'll just go through the comments. So Ron and I have been in discussions. He's just like we did for the first phase. He's going to take the technical lead on the drawings. I'm here to talk about seeker impacts and general compliance with the finding statement for that seeker review that was done. In my review of this, it is complying with the zoning. That's comment number 2. The zoning allows 40-foot heights. These are about 22 feet. The setbacks are well in compliance. These are very far away from the roadways. Let's see. We also looked at the SPO and which is the scenic protection overlay, as well as the ridgeline protection overlay. This, as the architect and the attorney have noted, and the engineer have noted, these are kind of tucked away on the former first hole fairway. They're not within the actual scenic protection overlay zones. Those are being taken care of as part of the phase 1 development. They are going to have landscaping along those corridors that are supposed to have them, along Snake Hill and Route 9. I think the existing vegetation that's here is going to screen these pretty well, but a site visit would help confirm that, especially with the leaves off, and I think November 17th sounds like a good idea. Glenn, can you just add a question? Just looking at your site plan, it doesn't really show much to the south. It's all the way going down to Snake Hill, but there's pretty much an 80-foot grade change between
That's what I would refer to
Snake
before,
Hill and up there. There's a ridge or a slope that's wooded, and then you have this flat area where they're proposing to put this. So it's pretty.
That's the roadway I was saying. You can drive a car on it. We did at one site visit.
So I think we'll confirm that when you're out there, and someone's driving along Snake Hill and looking to the right, they're not going to be able to see this.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Don't forget yet, but
Sure.
along Snake Hill, for sure, because you have the aqueduct in the way. Along
Right.
Phillips Brook, it's a little closer, but it's
There's a lot of
also
woods in the way.
downhill, and there's a lot of woods.
Yeah. So I think the site visit will really help get a sense of that. I did have a question about the steep slopes disturbance. We've had it come up on a couple of applications. Do you think that's going to be necessary for this one or no?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you can see that on the steep slopes or the ones we need a permit for, the salmon-colored ones, or whatever color that is. And we judiciously avoided them.
Okay. So in line with what Ron's memo said, I'm looking at my number 6 comment. We do have some referrals that we agree that should probably be considered, including the county referral, 239M, Highway Department, Health Department, Conservation Board. That's contingent on the steep slope issue. If that's not an issue, then probably not needing to involve them, but that's your opinion or your decision. And the Fire Department for general access and safety, which is something that this board usually does. As far as the seeker history, I covered, that I feel that a lot of this was covered in the EIS. The density-related areas of SECRA, including the traffic study, including the water and sewer analysis, were based on 44 bedrooms on the overall master plan. So that was accounted for in the overall studies. What I do have a little bit of a concern or question about is the construction aspects of this. That's really the big one. That's comment A under the seeker category. So the phasing for the project as described in the EIS was phase 1 includes the theater, includes the supporting elements of the theater, and also included the traffic signal at Snake Hill and 9. It noted that future phases were more not clear, and it could be anywhere from 5 to 15 years out. So I guess, if you're going to be including this now as part of phase 1, what's the plan as far as the construction? Is that going to be happening at the same time? Do you want to do that first, after the theater? So there's some questions here that we would like some follow-up about. The general timeline, if you can provide some graphics showing how far away this construction area is from the nearest receptor or neighbor. I'm pretty sure it's about 500 to 1,000 feet away from anyone else, but if you can confirm that, that would be helpful. And just a general timeline about how long it's going to take to build these 6 buildings in comparison to the theater. So that's what I'm looking for with that. The lighting plan wasn't included in this submission. I think that's important too, just because, this is kind of isolated on the site. I'm sure there's going to be lighting, but, I recommend that it's, dark sky compliant, downward facing fixtures. It would be good to see how many fixtures you're proposing, what that would look like, maybe in a nighttime view, if that's possible. C is about architecture and visibility. I think I kind of touched on that. The visual impact study in the EIS did consider this area, and it considered 40-foot tall buildings, but it wasn't visible from any of the vantage points that were studied, confirmed by the topography and the screening. So I think, again, the site visit will help to the board to understand better if we need to look at that further. And then lastly, the last page of the memo, there were several notes that we had included on the phase 1 site plan set that came out of the seeker review. There was, the finding statement had several commitments and mitigation measures, and I'm asking that those get made sure that they're repeated in this plan set as well under an environmental notes category. I think you've included most of them. I just wanted you to double check to make sure these are all in there. And there was one additional one about related to noise. Aside from the protocol that's already been approved by the town for noise complaints in general for the project, there was also a provision that for the artist lodging, there's a quiet hours provision between 10:30 p.m. and 8 a.m. That we want to see as a note on the plan, so that's enforceable. Otherwise, that's really it for now.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. Let's go down. Steve, you want to weigh in on this, and then we'll take it to the board for some preliminary questions?
Well, you should really touch base with Ron. He has a separate memo, but there are 2 things I'll just tack on quickly in between. The first one is, and it's alluded to in the cover letter submitting this, I'm sure the board recalls, I just think it's good to say it at the meeting. I'm sure the board recalls that in approving the Phase 1, which was the theater and related improvements, the applicant had said a number of times that they didn't have the details on Phase 2 because they didn't know when they would be going forward with it. It was a matter of funding. They couldn't provide you with that.
Didn't have as much detail as we would have liked to have had.
Exactly, and now here it is, you've granted the Phase 1, and
Here they are.
And the reason that they're here is they've had the good fortune, and it's referenced in the cover letter, it's nothing, I don't think, surprising here, to get a substantial grant from New York State, and I believe a federal grant as well, although I'm not sure that that bill passed, but I mean, so now, again, and it's a good thing, they have the funds to go forward with at least this aspect of the additional developments, and that's why they're back now. It's not like this was some, predetermined plan that they were being disingenuous. They just happened to have
Wasn't a sinister plot, right?
Exactly, to move forward with it. Now, that does give rise to an issue, as Aaron alluded to, in regard to the timing of the construction. There were a certain number of impacts that were, environmental impacts, that were anticipated from the construction of the improvements that were proposed in phase 1. And, things like truck traffic, noise on-site from construction, lights, things like that. And now we're going to, and we don't know the timing of the construction. They haven't told us what, and they may not know, but I mean, they'll have to at some point let you know. Is this all going to be taking place at once? Are they going to build the theater first and then the housing first and then the theater? Is there going to be a gap between the two? If it's all going to take place at once or relatively close together, it's possible that there are more impacts from that than had been anticipated initially, and you may have to impose some sort of mitigation measures in terms of limiting traffic or limiting noise or what have you. We'll have to see that as it goes forward, but it's an issue that this coming back more quickly than anticipated raises.
So we have a much denser construction window. We have a compressed time frame, so you understand where all this is. I mean, I'm actually sure you anticipated this, so you're not being taken off guard by any of this. You know what the questions are going to be.
No, and we received the memo from Aaron and from Ron, and so. Yes.
Okay, all right. You said not just the things from.
And there are some advantages to compressing the window, meaning you won't have to disturb the neighbors twice. It's sort of all in one go.
Big rip the Band-Aid right off, right.
But kidding aside, we will put together some analysis of what this means.
Good.
And the other thing, and Ron has a memo on it, he'll explain it further. In regard to the phase 1 that was improved, there's an issue of setting a restoration bond and associated inspection fees. And you have to make a recommendation on that to the town board. The town board will ultimately set it. So, and again, Ron can explain it better, but you're going to want to vote tonight to make that recommendation to the town board so they can actually set those fees in accordance with Ron's memo on the subject. You should have all received it.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Ron, do you want to go? I'm sorry.
Sure. The board obviously is generally aware of this project, going through the review of the overall master plan, which culminated in the issuance of a finding statement to let them go forward and ultimately grant approval for just phase 1 of the project. As has been described, they're now prepared to fund phase 2 for this portion of the housing project. So the process itself is going to be very similar to what the board has accomplished for the first project. The environmental review might be somewhat abbreviated. Your obligation here, having already accomplished the environmental review, is just to verify whether there's any impacts that were not studied or have not been mitigated, or any impacts from this latest proposal that might exceed the thresholds that you have already studied and considered properly mitigated. So that's the extent of the environmental review you'll do. But statutorily, there's things you want to do at this initial meeting. One is wish to just classify it as a major project. At some point, you're going to want to set a site inspection for the work. The referrals should be accomplished at this point. They'll be very similar to what was done before. Aaron has already highlighted those to be done. And obviously, eventually, a public hearing will be held on this aspect of the project itself. So those issues can be addressed early on in this process.
All right, okay, so, all right.
Get 'em to- So for this, you want to just recognize that the project is a major
Major
project,
project.
classified as such now, just to get that established.
Lead agency, we're already lead agency, or we want
Seeker's
to?
completed in terms of that. You don't have to do anything.
We don't have to
When
do
you go
that.
to make an approval on this, assuming that you do make an approval on it, there'll be a finding of consistency with the finding statement that was previously adopted.
Okay, so it attaches to that application. So, all right, so let's go down the list. We'll do these. We've got the Putnam County Board of Health, Garrison Fire Department, 239 to County Planning, correct? Correct. Just nod, yeah. County Highway, yes. And declare it a major project.
And a courtesy referral to the CB, I think, and probably the fire company.
I'm sorry, courtesy to who?
I would do it to the CB, and
Yeah.
I'd suggest, of course, the
Oh, the
fire.
Conservation Board, okay. Okay, so let's break these up. What we'll do, first, can I hear a motion to declare it a major site project?
Make a motion.
Second? All in favor? Aye, okay, so the second, let's do these in a group. Can I hear a motion to make the appropriate referrals to the Putnam County Board of Health, the Garrison Fire Department, Putnam County Planning for the 239, County Highway, Putnam County Highway, or DPW, and the Conservation Board, and Fire District. So-
Department of Health?
I did, I think I mentioned it
Okay.
twice. Can I get a motion to that effect? And second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. I vote aye. Site visit?
If you want.
Site visit, November 17th?
Sounds good. Can it be cleared and staked
Staked.
by that
Yeah,
time?
It's been staked.
It's been staked. We'll make sure it's in good
Stakes.
shape on the 17th.
About 10:30? We've got the one at 9:30, right up the road.
10 or 10?
How much, what did we say, 9:30 behind Marcinex? So, I don't know, we'll get, 10:30. Make it 10:30, okay? Because we had some people that were interested in that project. We might get, it might run, let's give it an hour. So we'll see you at 10:30.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry.
That addresses the issue of the Phase 2 application that you've just heard. But as Steve was talking about, there's also an obligation for this board to just evaluate the bonding that was required by the Phase 1 approval for that project. That's where there's a separate memorandum from my office.
Okay.
Typically, what the board does on projects, since you're not going to actually build out the project yourself, you want to secure sufficient monies to restore the site should there be wholesale disturbance that the applicant eventually abandons. So we've evaluated the proposal. We've come up with restoration bond amounts and associated inspection fees. We've reviewed them with the applicant's engineer, and they have accepted those numbers. So what we're recommending the board do is just endorse these numbers and make a recommendation to the town board that these numbers be set for the Phase 1 approval.
Okay.
To address that condition of approval.
So it's a motion to have the board approve the referral to the town board concerning the performance bond.
Restoration bond amount of $400,000. And an
Restoration
associated
bond, sorry.
inspection fee of $20,000.
Okay. So we're just making we're making a recommendation to the town board to review or approve Ron's numbers.
That's to set those amounts.
It's actually set.
To set those amounts. So we're sending it to them to make sure that those numbers for the, I keep saying construction, or performance bond, construction bond?
Restoration
Restoration bond
and associated fees.
and associated fees. So can I get a motion to that effect?
Make that motion.
And second? And all in favor? I vote aye. I think we're good. All right.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn? I'll make that motion. Second. All in favor? Aye. I vote aye.